It's only natural that we begin to feel sleepy while listening. Soft sounds have a way of relaxing us, making it easier to drift off into a peaceful slumber. I'm Thomas, your host. Tonight, we're back with a special extended episode featuring a gentle compilation of past stories to help you unwind and settle into the cozy world of Lily's Rainy Day Bakery. In this episode, you'll be taken on a soothing journey through 4 delightful tales, each one wrapped in the comforting aroma of sweet baked goods on a soft, rainy day. We'll begin with pumpkin pie and coffee, followed by baked apples on a windy day, then the perfect batch of cookies, and finally, a foggy day and sweet fudge. Each story is designed not just to relax you, but to spark memories of warmth, stillness, and comfort, as if you were curled up in a quiet corner of the bakery, listening to the gentle tap of rain outside the window. To add to the atmosphere, you'll hear the soft sound of falling rain in the background throughout this episode, a perfect natural rhythm to calm your mind and ease you into sleep. Get ready for a truly peaceful night. We hope you enjoy this special episode and feel completely relaxed as each story unfolds. Tonight, we'll be enjoying some of the most beloved stories of all time, all written by Shady Grove Oliver and narrated by me, Thomas. Before we begin, take a moment to truly relax. Let go of any tension from the day and allow yourself to fully settle into your soft, comfortable bed. The setting of tonight's story may already be familiar to many of you, a warm, peaceful, and safe place. It's a space you can always trust to bring you calm, comfort, and a touch of dreaminess. And right now, as you're nestled beneath your blanket, feeling the fabric against your skin and the softness of your pillow beneath your cheek, you're experiencing that sense of home in its purest form. Feel your head sinking gently into the pillow, allowing the muscles in your neck to completely relax, as if every bit of pressure from the day is slowly melting away. Let that comfort guide you into another world, a place where worries are left behind and gentle dreams are waiting to welcome you. Allow yourself to fully relax and feel a wave of comfort spreading throughout your body, as each part of you slowly lets go and slips into a deep, restful state. Soft, gentle music begins to play. If you're still holding on to any tightness or lingering fatigue, don't worry. The more you relax, the more those sensations will begin to fade, gently and gradually, like layers of tension being quietly washed away. Right now, all you need to do is enjoy the coziness of your familiar bed, feel the warmth surrounding you, and let yourself be cradled in the calm of this night. Outside, the raindrops are falling softly, tapping a steady rhythm against the window, like a sweet lullaby guiding you into peaceful sleep. The soft patter of rain against the window was the first thing Lily heard as the morning light remained just a whisper on the horizon. She didn't open her eyes right away, just lay there, listening to each drop fall like the opening notes of a gentle symphony. Every raindrop tapping on the glass felt like a quiet whisper from the early sky. At first, she counted them one by one, as if trying to hold on to the peace they brought. But soon the sounds blended together, like delicate white grains falling steadily into a clear glass jar, rhythmic, refined, and full of quiet poetry. Autumn is playing its own song, she thought to herself. The sound of the rain, the subtle rustling of leaves on the branches, it all evoked a special kind of beauty, soft, yet deeply moving. In her mind's eye, she pictured the trees dressed in vibrant reds and oranges, roads blanketed in golden leaves, and the crisp, clean air that made everything feel a little more serene. She smiled, feeling time slow down just enough to listen, to breathe, and to cherish the quiet whisper of the changing season. Lily yawned softly and stretched her arms above her head, reaching long as the last shadows of night still clung outside the window. Though it was still dark, she knew it was time to begin a new day. Before long, she'd pull on her warm coat, tuck her favorite knit hat over her ears, and step out onto the little street that led to her bakery. Soft music begins to play. Lily always woke up earlier than everyone around her, but she never minded. In fact, she loved her work. For her, joy began with baking the first batch of pastries, brewing the first cup of coffee in the gentle light of early morning, The familiar smiles of her customers, warm and sincere, always made those quiet early hours more meaningful than anything else. Waking up early each day not only helped Lily prepare the bakery, but it also made it easier for her to drift into a deep, restful sleep when night came. Soft music begins to play. She sat up, gently pulling the blanket off her legs, then swung her bare feet down to the floor. Her soft slippers were right where she left them, waiting to wrap her feet in gentle warmth. Still feeling a little sleepy, she moved slowly, letting out another quiet yawn, and tiptoed into the kitchen. Lily always found this time of day to be something special, quiet, unhurried, as though the whole world was still dreaming. She didn't want to disturb that peaceful stillness, so each of her steps was light and careful. The first light of the new day began to peek through the window, casting a faint glow on the gray wall of the house across the street. The sky still held a shade of night, but Lily knew dawn was just around the corner. A new day was on its way, and she was ready to welcome it with all the calm and peace in her heart. Lily's neighbor was still fast asleep. He usually didn't rise until the morning was fully underway, always beginning his day with a familiar cup of coffee. Then he'd stroll out into his garden, tending to the grass, flowers, and bushes with quiet patience and care. His garden was one of the loveliest Lily had ever seen, neat, vibrant, and full of life. She smiled, a gentle wave of gratitude rising in her chest as she thought about the kind, warm-hearted people who lived around her. Lily stepped over to the kitchen counter, set the kettle on the stove, and began preparing a strong cup of black tea, her favorite way to start the day. She added a splash of milk and watched quietly as it swirled into the tea, like soft clouds drifting lazily through the glow of early morning. The ivory-white milk swirled slowly through the dark tea, blending together to create a soft and warming picture. Lily carefully lifted the cup and walked over to her usual seat, a small wooden chair beneath the kitchen window. She sat down, bringing the steaming cup to her lips. The first sip was always the best, warm, gently fragrant, and deeply comforting. The flavor spread through her like glowing embers, quietly warming her from the inside out on this chilly day. Outside the glass, the sky stretched out in a heavy gray. Thick clouds blanketed the town like a great quilt pulled snug across the rooftops. It didn't look like the sun would be making an appearance today. It's raining again today, Lily thought to herself, but there was nothing to worry about. Autumn always brought rain, soft, steady, and full of feeling. To her, these gentle showers carried a beauty all their own, an essential part of the season's quiet transformation. Without the rain, there would be no reason to pull on her warm, cozy sweaters, slip into her favorite pair of rubber boots, or wrap that soft scarf snugly around her neck. And she wouldn't get to carry her cheerful, colorful umbrella, always a bright little accent on an otherwise gray day. Truthfully, rain had its own charm, as long as you had a hot cup of tea and a warm enough outfit to wrap yourself in completely. Lily took the last sip of her tea, feeling the warmth spread gently through her chest. Then she stood, rinsed the cup in the sink, and set it carefully on the drying rack. A new day had begun, and a quiet peace settled over her heart. Placing the teacup gently on the bamboo drying rack, Lily turned and walked back to her bedroom to get dressed for the day ahead. Before leaving the room, she glanced once more at her soft, inviting bed. There would be time to rest again later. Out in the hallway, she wrapped a thick wool scarf around her neck, pulled on her felt hat, and grabbed her bright yellow umbrella. When the door clicked shut behind her, it made a soft snap. Lily stepped onto the rain-slicked stone path and opened her umbrella, a sudden bloom of golden light above her, like a ray of sunshine against the gray sky. From the window of the house next door, the familiar little white cat sat curled up, gazing outside. It blinked slowly, as if offering a quiet morning greeting of its own. Lily was familiar with that house, and with its owner, a kind woman who always wore her hair neatly pinned at the nape of her neck. The white cat watched Lily as she passed by, its gaze calm and unreadable. Lily smiled softly and gave a small wave to her quiet companion. Aside from the fluffy little friend, the whole neighborhood was still asleep. Not a single person stirred this early in the morning. Lily walked slowly past the cozy houses, their windows still dark, tucked beneath the blanket of night. A few porch lights flickered gently across tiled steps, while the street lamps cast a soft golden glow that shimmered on the rain-slicked road. She listened to the steady patter of raindrops all around her, that familiar rhythm walking beside each of her steps, bringing with it a sense of calm and quiet peace that filled her heart. Raindrops slid softly down the surface of Lily's umbrella, tracing slow paths across the damp fabric. Beneath the bright yellow canopy, she felt safe and dry. A tiny, private world all her own. It reminded her of childhood days, building forts out of blankets and pillows, hiding inside them as if the outside world didn't exist. Within those soft folds, she'd felt a perfect kind of peace, a quiet little space that belonged only to her. Lily smiled at the memory and gently tightened the wool scarf around her neck, pulling it closer to her cheek for added warmth. She stepped lightly over a puddle on her left, then gracefully avoided another to her right, as the path ahead began to slope downward, signaling she was nearing the gentle hill that led to her familiar bakery. The narrow stone path gradually sloped down to the small parking area behind the bakery. In the soft drizzle and muted sky, the shop door stood out brightly like a burst of color in the gray. Swirls of green, blue, yellow, purple, and orange danced across the wooden surface, curling and twirling as if to greet anyone who might walk in. Lily remembered clearly that summer afternoon when she first painted the door. The sun had dipped low, casting everything in a golden glow, while she focused intently, brush in hand. There was no pattern, no plan, just a free flow of creativity. The colors blended instinctively, swirling together into a vivid, joyful design on the old wooden panels. When she finally stepped back, brushing a strand of hair from her face, she noticed the dry specks of paint dotting her overalls and arms. She laughed to herself, her heart light with the quiet joy of turning something ordinary into something beautiful, even if just in one small corner of the world. Now, Lily pulled the ring of brass keys from her coat pocket and slid one into the lock. The familiar creak of the old door welcomed her in, revealing a dim interior still cloaked in sleep. She shook out her umbrella, then gently flipped the switch near the entrance. Light flooded the space, warm and golden, like an embrace from an old friend. She let out a soft sigh. How good it felt to be here again. The scent of flour, sugar, and espresso slowly began to bloom in the air, a quiet welcome home. From the kitchen, yesterday's baking still lingered. A hint of buttery cookies, sweet buttercream, and the nutty warmth of roasted pecans from the last tart she'd made before closing. Already, Lily's mind was busy planning the day. First things first, turn on the oven, giving it time to warm up. She'd start with her usual cinnamon rolls, but this morning, she thought she might add roasted pecans to give them a little extra crunch and depth. She moved to the stainless steel counter, where the cleaned parts of the espresso machine sat neatly from the night before. One by one, she reassembled them with care, the soft clinks of metal meeting metal echoing gently through the quiet space, like the familiar opening notes of a morning symphony. Everything was falling into rhythm. A new morning at Lily's bakery was beginning once again, fragrant, comforting, and whole. Today, along with her usual cinnamon rolls, Lily would also be making pumpkin bread, a treat everyone began asking for as soon as autumn arrived. It was the same every year. Around this time, familiar customers would smile and ask, "When will the pumpkin bread be back, Lily?" Some only wanted a single slice to go with their morning coffee, while others brought home whole loaves to share with family over a cozy dinner. Lily walked over to the snug little seating nook along the wall, where she had tucked an outlet behind a low shelf. Kneeling down, she reached behind it to find the plug, then connected the lights. Instantly, a string of tiny golden bulbs flickered to life above her, casting a soft, warm glow across the ceiling. She paused for a moment, looking up at the gentle sparkle. A slow, deep breath in and out. The warmth seemed to settle over her shoulders, spreading a quiet peace through her chest. These little moments, she thought, this is where the magic of life lives. Bathed in the gentle light, Lily turned back toward the counter and stepped into the small open kitchen behind it. From here, she could see the entire bakery, easy to move between the mixing station and the espresso machine when customers started coming in. She crouched down and pulled out 2 large white bins of flour from beneath the counter. The dough, which she had prepped and let rest overnight, was now soft, slightly sticky, and ready to be transformed into the day's first batch of warm, comforting baked goods. The bakery felt like home to Lily, a place so familiar, so comforting. After a little while, a soft beep sounded from the oven, signaling that the first batch of cinnamon rolls was ready. She carefully pulled out the tray and set it on the cooling rack, the sweet scent wafting through the air, cozy and inviting. Now it was time for the pumpkin bread. Lily made her way toward the small room at the back of the kitchen, a space she fondly called her magic room. It was where she kept all the ingredients and baking tools she could ever need. Large tubs of flour and neatly stacked jars of baking powder, below rows of big spice canisters and extract bottles. On the top shelf sat a jar of fresh vanilla beans, nestled beside star anise, cloves, poppy seeds, onion powder, roasted garlic, and a pinch of dried chili. On the bottom shelf, Lily spotted the fresh sugar pumpkins, recently delivered from a nearby farm. She picked out one just the right size, its bright orange skin gleaming, and cradled it in her arms like a small treasure. Then, filling a large metal bowl with her chosen spices and a few wooden spoons, she made her way back to the counter, arms full, moving with the ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times. She began prepping the pumpkin, slicing it in half, scooping out the seeds and stringy insides, then placing both halves cut side down on a baking tray, ready for the oven to work its magic. While the pumpkin roasted, Lily turned her attention to the crust. There were plenty of base recipes to choose from, but her favorite was always the graham cracker crust, the one passed down from her Aunt Lucy, who used to make the cutest little pies during the holidays for all the children. Lily pulled out a familiar blue box of graham crackers from the shelf and smiled, ready for the next step. Lily set the box of graham crackers on the clean countertop and gently draped a tea towel over it. She reached for her large wooden rolling pin, an old sturdy tool that had been with her through countless baking seasons. Bit by bit, she rolled it across the covered crackers, feeling the pressure transfer through her hands as the cookies began to crumble beneath. The soft crack-crack sound was familiar and oddly satisfying. Once everything was finally crushed, like dry sand, she folded back the edges of the towel and poured the crumbs into a large mixing bowl. A fine dust rose into the air, and she let out a quiet laugh as it tickled her nose. Lily walked over to the massive silver fridge and pulled out a stick of butter, peeling away the wax paper wrapping with practiced ease. She placed it in a glass cup and popped it into the microwave for a few seconds, just long enough to melt it completely. Once warm and golden, she poured the butter into the bowl of crushed graham crackers, added a bit of brown sugar, and a heaping spoonful of fragrant cinnamon. With a long wooden spoon, she stirred the mixture until it reached the texture of damp sand. Then, using her hands with gentle precision, Lily pressed the crust mixture into the bottom and sides of a shallow pie dish. She worked carefully, applying extra pressure where needed, adjusting any spots that looked too thick, until the crust was even, sturdy, and beautiful. Just then, the oven gave a soft beep. The pumpkin was perfectly roasted. Sliding on her colorful oven mitts, Lily pulled out the hot tray and gently slid the prepared crust into the now empty oven. She set the timer for 12 minutes, just long enough to let it crisp up before adding the filling. Right on cue, a creak echoed from the wooden door. Lily smiled. The first customer of the day had arrived. As always, it was Mr. Seamus, the kind older gentleman who never showed up without a thick book in hand ready to start his morning. Mr. Seamus always began his day with a cup of black coffee and a warm cinnamon roll. Only on special days like today, Pumpkin Pie Day, did he change his order. Lily smiled as she poured the rich, fragrant stream of coffee into his usual ceramic mug. After so many years visiting the bakery, Seamus didn't need to place an order anymore. Just a soft, "Good morning," at the counter. And Lily had already prepared his breakfast before he even asked. "Smells like pumpkin pie today," he said with a gentle smile as he picked up his coffee. Lily nodded and promised to bring him a slice the moment it came out of the oven. Seamus thanked her and made his way slowly to his usual seat by the window, unfolding the morning paper with a crisp swish. To Lily, his arrival always felt like the true beginning of the day. She loved working with the quiet comfort of Seamus nearby. He felt like part of the soul of the bakery, like so many of her regulars. Together they created a little community, a small family known as Rainy Day Bakery. In this place, everyone had a favorite seat, a favorite treat, and a few simple stories to share. Lily glanced at the small clock on the wall. The crust was ready. She slipped her colorful oven mitts back on and carefully pulled the pie dish from the oven. A warm, sweet aroma filled the air, buttery and comforting, blending with the smell of coffee and the gentle sound of rain tapping against the windows. She smiled. A new day had truly begun. "Smells absolutely divine," Mr. Seamus often said whenever the scent of baking filled the air. Now, Lily focused on the pumpkin filling. She used a large spoon to scoop the glistening orange flesh into a big ceramic bowl. With a wooden spoon, she mashed the pieces gently until the mixture became silky smooth like cream. From the fridge, she pulled out fresh eggs and heavy cream. One by one, she cracked the eggs against the rim of the bowl, the golden yolks shining brightly against the pumpkin's vibrant hue. As she poured in the cream, it flowed in slow, white streams, weaving through the sea of orange like rivers through a bright autumn valley. Next came the spices, heaping spoonfuls of cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, cloves, and a pinch of cardamom. As she measured and stirred, the familiar, comforting aromas rose into the air, evoking memories of festive gatherings, chilly afternoons wrapped in laughter, and the warm embrace of family. She grated a little lemon zest into the mix, a bright, tangy note to lift the rich flavors. Each stir of her spoon felt like folding sweet memories into the batter, blending past and present in a fragrant golden swirl. Around her, the world seemed to soften, steeped in warmth and nostalgia. When the filling was perfectly smooth and velvety, Lily carefully poured it into the freshly baked crust, ready to return it to the oven. The pumpkin pie, autumn's sweetest gift, was taking shape. Lily scraped every last bit of pumpkin filling from the bowl with a rubber spatula, determined not to waste a single drop. Carefully, she lifted the unbaked pie, its filling still liquid and shimmering, and carried it to the oven. With the practiced ease of someone who'd done this 100 times, she slid it onto the middle rack, gentle as though setting down something precious. When the oven timer clicked into place with a soft tick, Lily let out a small sigh and took a moment to rest. She leaned against the long prep table, taking in the familiar warmth of the bakery. In one corner stood a little bookshelf, filled with slim novels and a few hefty art books left behind by customers. Lily had added a few of her favorite mystery novels after finishing them, hoping someone else might find the same joy in their pages. That small act of sharing always made life feel just a bit more complete. Beside the shelf sat a tiny rocking chair, child-sized and well-loved, which Lily had discovered years ago in a secondhand shop. She'd brought it back for the youngest of her visitors. Over time, the chair had been decorated with spontaneous doodles, flowers, bees, squiggly lines, and the occasional scratch carved by tiny, curious hands. It bore the fingerprints of childhood, and Lily loved it all the more for it. The oven chimed with a cheerful ting, pulling Lily back to the moment. She opened the door and a wave of warmth rolled out like the breath of a dragon. The rich scent of pumpkin mingled with toasted nuts and fragrant spices, flooding the kitchen with the promise of a sweet, golden morning. The sweet, comforting aroma of freshly baked pumpkin pie filled the kitchen. Lily gently pulled the tray from the oven and set it on the counter to cool. As the pie began to settle, she took the chance to tidy up, mixing bowls, rolling pin, and measuring cups scattered across the counter in the happy chaos of a morning well spent. Through the window, she caught Seamus's curious, hopeful gaze drifting toward the pie. She chuckled and cut him a slice. Then, after a moment's thought, she cut one for herself too. After all, it had been a long morning, and there was nothing better than sharing a sweet treat with an old friend. She placed the slices on 2 small white plates, topping each with a generous spoonful of soft whipped cream. Carrying them over to the table by the window, she sat across from Seamus. Smells amazing. Tastes just as good every year, he said, sinking his fork into the silky filling. Lily took a small bite, letting the tangy sweetness of pumpkin melt on her tongue. The flavor was rich, spiced, and deeply familiar, like being wrapped in a soft, warm hug. Perfect, she thought. Absolutely perfect. As they ate, Lily glanced around her little bakery, heart full of pride. Seamus smiled contentedly, and Lily felt a deep sense of gratitude for a morning like this. The twinkling lights above, the gentle patter of rain against the windows. Every little detail made this place feel like a true home. The bakery wasn't just a place for making delicious things. It was a place where stories lived, where memories and moments were quietly treasured by those who passed through. And for Lily, that was the most meaningful part of it all. Raindrops tapped gently against the window beside Lily's bed. Every now and then, a stronger gust of wind would hurl the rain against the glass with a louder thud, echoing through the quiet room. Lily remained curled beneath the covers, eyes half closed, listening to the natural symphony of the storm outside. Today's definitely going to be a blustery one, she thought. These final moments in bed each morning were always her favorite. The in-between space where dreams hadn't quite faded and the softness of sleep still lingered. A small yawn escaped as she stretched, arms reaching above her head, then slowly rolled her ankles, first to the right, then to the left, preparing for the first step onto the floor. Lily drew in a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and felt her body melt deeper into the warm cocoon of blankets. Just one more minute, she told herself, a dreamy smile tugging at the corners of her lips. The sound of the rain continued its gentle rhythm, sometimes like a curtain of water sweeping across the glass, other times so soft it felt like it had disappeared entirely. Outside, the wind tugged at tree branches, scattering raindrops in bursts that splashed again toward the house. Mornings like these always filled Lily with a curious kind of excitement, as if the wild, unpredictable weather gave her permission to be a little wilder too, a little more spontaneous. With that thought, Lily slowly sat up, placing her feet on the floor, then stood and walked to the window. The world outside was still cloaked in darkness, just as it always was at this hour. The neighborhood was still fast asleep, but for Lily, the day had already begun. The whole town was still fast asleep. Even the cats, most likely curled up on soft cushions or perched on windowsills, waiting for the first hint of dawn. Lily quietly slipped her feet into a pair of plush slippers and padded softly into the kitchen, where everything was still wrapped in the gentle hush of early morning. The first thing she did was set the kettle on the stove to make a strong cup of hot tea. She leaned lightly against the counter while she waited for the water to boil, listening to the soft bubbling begin to stir inside the kettle. From a drawer, Lily pulled out a small metal tea infuser and carefully filled it with fragrant black tea leaves. Each little strand stood upright in odd directions, making it a bit of a puzzle to twist the lid shut without spilling anything. She hooked the infuser inside her favorite mug with a tiny metal clip, and as soon as the water reached a boil, she poured it slowly over the leaves. Tiny bubbles escaped from the infuser, making it float for a moment before gently sinking to the bottom. The water slowly turned a rich amber, tea spirals swirling outward in delicate, lazy waves. Lily lifted the cup to her nose, closed her eyes, and inhaled deeply. The warmth and scent of the hot tea awakened her senses like a quiet embrace, offering a comforting start to the chilly morning. Today, she decided to skip the milk. Just a small change, but a pleasant one. She carried the mug over to the wooden chair by the window, the place where she always began her mornings. Outside, the neighborhood was still hushed, the sky blanketed in soft gray clouds. Rain continued to fall in a steady rhythm, like a gentle soundtrack for this peaceful moment. Outside the window, the world only seemed to move when a breeze drifted through. The wind nudged the branches of the tree across the street, making them sway and bend in the crisp morning air. Definitely a coat day, Lily thought to herself, lifting her mug and taking another sip. The warmth of the tea slowly spread through her body, comforting her in small, steady waves. She wiggled her toes inside her thick slippers, feeling the soft stimulation ripple through her skin. A quiet, satisfying kind of warmth. A perfect morning for slowing down, she mused with a small smile. Once she finished the last sip of tea, Lily rinsed the cup and placed it on the bamboo drying rack next to the sink, a small morning ritual that gave her a sense of quiet completion. Even though the sun had yet to rise, she knew it was time to get ready and head down to the bakery. After years of opening her shop each morning, Lily had developed a sort of internal clock, precise down to the minute. She always knew exactly when it was time to savor the last drop of tea, and when it was time to leave the house. She padded softly into her bedroom and chose a simple gray shirt, the color somehow matching the outside world perfectly. Once she was dressed, she stepped toward the front door and pulled on her thick wool coat, carefully fastening each button. Then came the scarf, a hand-knitted piece, thick and cozy, wrapped lovingly around her neck. It had been a winter gift 2 years ago from Rose, one of her longtime regulars. Every time Lily put it on, she thought of the friends who had been part of the bakery's journey over the years. She tugged the edge of the scarf up to cover her chin, tucking the ends snugly into her coat. Then, from the pocket of her coat, she pulled out a pair of gloves and slipped them on one at a time, ready now to step out into the world and greet a brand new day. The last thing Lily needed was her familiar yellow umbrella. Once she'd double-checked that she hadn't forgotten anything, she pulled the door closed behind her and paused for a moment on the doorstep. Opening the umbrella wasn't easy in the wind. The gusts tugged and twisted it as she struggled for a few seconds. But at last, it sprang open, a burst of brightness against the dim, rain-swept morning. The vivid yellow stood out like a tiny lantern moving through the storm. Lily took a deep breath, then stepped down onto the sidewalk, bracing herself against the wind and rain. Heavy droplets drummed steadily on the umbrella's canopy, creating a sound like distant drums echoing in the small, private space beneath her shelter. Each tap sounded like someone scattering beads across the fabric. As she passed her neighbor's house, Lily glanced up at the familiar window. The white cat that usually waited for her every morning was still curled up, fast asleep, its little pink nose tucked into its soft fur. Normally, it would be watching her with keen eyes or grooming its tiny paws. But today was clearly a lazy day for the cat. Lily smiled at the sight. For a moment, she longed to curl up under a warm blanket too. But then, in her mind's eye, she saw the familiar faces of her regular customers, and the smile on her lips grew wider. They were the reason she rose early each morning, no matter the weather, to open the doors of Rainy Day Bakery. She walked on, dodging puddles that shimmered with the reflections of streetlights. The sky hadn't yet begun to brighten, and it might not all day, she thought with a shrug. Up ahead, the brightly painted door of the bakery came into view, a cheerful beacon against the gray, waiting to welcome her home. Though the morning light was still faint, the vibrant colors on the bakery door stood out boldly, as if inviting passers-by to step in and take shelter. Rainy Day Bakery had always been a haven on days like this, a place to sip something warm, savor a slice of pumpkin pie or a cinnamon roll, and sink quietly into the pages of a good book. Some customers preferred to chat, trading bits of everyday life with old friends and new faces alike, all within the cozy embrace of this familiar space. Lily smiled, realizing how her little shop had become an essential part of the neighborhood. It felt like a second home, somewhere anyone could find something to comfort them, to make them feel at ease. Just as the thought drifted through her mind, a sharp gust of wind swept in and flipped the umbrella inside out. The handle slipped from her grasp, and before she could react, the bright yellow umbrella had twisted and buckled, offering no shelter at all. Lily ducked her head and ran the last few steps toward the cheerful door, pulling the bundle of brass keys from her coat pocket. She found the right one, hugged the broken umbrella tight to her side, and pushed the heavy wooden door open. Inside, it was dark and quiet. She wiped her feet carefully on the entry rug, not wanting to soak the floor, then flicked on the lights. A gentle glow spread through the room, illuminating every familiar surface. Kneeling down, she examined the umbrella. Several of the metal ribs had bent, and the latch no longer held. With a small sigh, she set it aside in the corner. That umbrella had seen her through countless rainy mornings, but perhaps it was finally time for a new one. Still, a new day at the bakery had begun. Lily planned to stay at the bakery all day, so she wasn't sure when she'd have the chance to buy a new umbrella. It might be a rather soggy walk home this evening, she thought, but that didn't bother her. She was long accustomed to the weather around here. Every day might begin with a small inconvenience, but what mattered most was how you chose to meet it. She took a deep breath, letting go of the thought, and slowly exhaled, grounding herself in the rhythm of her work. The familiar scents of espresso, flour, and pecans lingered faintly in the air from the night before, welcoming her back into the space. Usually, she'd start the day with a batch of cinnamon rolls, but just like her tea this morning, Lily felt drawn to something a little different today. She wandered toward the cozy seating area near the front of the shop and knelt down to plug in the fairy lights. Within seconds, the tiny bulbs twinkled to life like scattered diamonds in the morning mist. Their soft glow lifted her spirits. Feeling a quiet spark of energy, she turned and headed into the storeroom. Before her stood tall shelves lined with baking supplies and ingredients. "What should I make today?" she whispered to herself. 2 days ago, she'd made blueberry scones. Yesterday, it was lemon cake and rose pecan loaves. Last week, chocolate muffins. All of them had been well loved by customers. But today, Lily wanted something that would delight her too. She thought of her grandmother's old cookbook, the one she'd found on her family's bookshelf long ago. There was a recipe she'd never tried, marked with a small slip of paper. Smiling to herself, Lily walked toward the wooden bookcase where that very book still waited patiently for her. Lily opened the old book and flipped to the marked page. A simple recipe titled Baked Apples appeared, its name handwritten neatly in the familiar script of her grandmother, tucked into the margin of a page now yellowed with time. One note read, "Perfect for a crisp autumn day." Elsewhere, her grandmother had added small tips, gentle adjustments to ingredient amounts, little flourishes of wisdom passed down through ink. "This is the one," Lily murmured with a smile. Today felt just right for something new. The ingredient list was wonderfully unfussy. Butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, oats, chopped pecans, and a few large ruby red apples. She gathered everything carefully and brought them to the counter. The butter was left to soften at room temperature while she roughly chopped the pecans and measured the oats. Then she turned on the oven and let it slowly preheat. The next step required more precision, hollowing out each apple without breaking its skin. Her grandmother's note stood out clearly in the margin. Use a paring knife and a small spoon. Lily gently picked up the knife, placed the tip near the stem, and traced a slow, deliberate circle around the core. Then, with a slight twist, she eased the core out. The apple now resembled a tiny, hollowed-out pumpkin. She repeated the process with each one, and before long, the motion became second nature, as if her hands had done this 100 times before. In the quiet stillness of the bakery, Lily felt a guiding presence in every step. Like her grandmother's hand still lingered beside hers, steady and kind. "Everything's going to be just fine," Rose said, giving Lily's hand a reassuring pat before carrying her coffee over to her usual table and settling in. A few moments later, Seamus, another familiar face, walked in with a rain-soaked hat. Lily brought him his usual coffee and promised a baked apple once they were ready. Gradually, the morning regulars began to trickle in. Some looked as if they had just fought their way through a downpour. Coats speckled with raindrops, newspapers folded into makeshift umbrellas, a few still shaking water off their collapsed umbrellas at the door. Lily greeted each one with a warm smile, serving steaming cups of coffee, fragrant tea, and sweet pastries straight from the oven. When the oven timer chimed, she turned around and carefully pulled the baking tray from the heat. Inside were plump, softened apples, their centers bubbling with brown sugar and cinnamon, filling the kitchen with a rich, buttery aroma. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed Rose chatting animatedly with a few other customers. Lily briefly wondered what morning conversations might be unfolding at that table, but her thoughts soon returned to the task at hand. With care, she lifted each apple from the tray and placed it gently onto small plates. Then she opened the fridge, retrieving a container of cream. She poured some into a chilled bowl, and added a spoonful of sugar. The mixer hummed steadily, blending the cream into soft peaks. Still, a small thought tugged at her. Rose had left before tasting the baked apples. Once the cream reached just the right texture, Lily stopped the mixer and scooped a dollop onto each warm apple. A final drizzle of her special sauce went on top, finishing the dish with a touch of sweetness. The baked apples were ready, just the thing to warm the hearts of anyone who stepped into the Rainy Day Bakery on a cold, wet morning. The sweet aroma of warm apples, blended with the rich scent of cream and a hint of caramel, drifting through the entire bakery. The air itself seemed wrapped in a cozy warmth, creating a feeling of comfort and belonging, like being home. Lily carefully carried the first plate over to Seamus and set it down in front of him. Next came the serving for the family, tucked into the corner booth, the woman with the folded newspaper, and the man who always ordered the cranberry scone. Just as she was finishing, Lily spotted Rose walking back into the bakery. In her hands was a neatly wrapped gift, the paper glossy and cheerful. She waved Lily over and handed her the package. On the front was a handwritten note, "To Lily, from all your friends at Rainy Day Bakery." Lily unwrapped it and couldn't help but laugh when she saw what was inside. A brand new umbrella. It was bright green with little golden polka dots, and best of all, the handle was shaped like a duck's head, endearingly quirky in the most delightful way. "This might be the most cheerful umbrella I've ever seen," Lily said to Rose, her eyes sparkling with emotion. "Thank you all so much." She glanced around the room and saw every familiar face smiling back at her. This small, thoughtful gift carried so much meaning. It was a gesture of shared joy, of gratitude, and a testament to the special bond between Lily and the people who loved this little bakery as much as she did. And in that moment, with the rain still falling gently outside, golden light glowing inside, and the scent of baked apples filling the room, Lily's heart brimmed with happiness. She knew, without a doubt, this was exactly where she belonged. When Lily realized the new umbrella was a gift from all her friends, a wave of warmth swept through her chest. The affection they showed her, and the many shared moments inside this little bakery, made her feel deeply rooted, like she truly belonged here. "I've got a gift for you too," Lily said, giving Rose a playful wink as she handed her one of the last 2 baked apples, the special treat from her grandmother's recipe. The other she kept for herself. The two of them sat by the window, quietly enjoying their dessert as they gazed out at the gray sky, misty rain, and the wind playing with the world outside. But inside Rainy Day Bakery, everything was peaceful, cozy, and filled with love. Lily took a spoonful of the tender apple, packed with its sweet, spiced filling. The deep flavors of cinnamon, nutmeg, and melting caramel danced on her tongue, making her smile. What made the dish even more special was knowing that every step had felt like it was gently guided by her late grandmother. And today, she was sharing that taste with some of the dearest people in her life. The next morning, Lily woke to the soft sound of rain tapping gently on the porch roof. There was no wind, just the steady rhythm of droplets falling to the ground, like a peaceful soundtrack for the start of a new day. She yawned, stretched her arms and legs beneath the warm blankets, and allowed herself a few more quiet minutes of comfort before getting up. Today was going to be a special day. Lily would be hosting the bakery's annual cookie decorating party. She had already baked dozens of sugar cookies shaped like stars, hearts, and fir trees the day before. And in Lily's heart, there was a bubbling sense of joy, not just for the cookies, but for the simple magic of sharing them, of creating new memories in the kitchen that felt more and more like home each day. Though there was still plenty to do before guests arrived for the cookie decorating party this morning, Lily felt a quiet excitement stirring in her chest. This was one of her favorite times of the year. The bakery was always warm and welcoming, but on Cookie Day, it became livelier than ever, filled with laughter, the sweet scent of frosting and vanilla, and the familiar faces of neighbors and friends. She stretched once more, then gently swung her legs over the side of the bed, slipping into her soft slippers. Her flannel robe still hung neatly behind the bedroom door. She wrapped it around herself, the fabric's comforting touch warming her sleepy limbs. In the hush of early morning, she tiptoed into the kitchen. Lily's mornings always began in the same way. First, she boiled water. While waiting, she pulled out her favorite metal teacup and filled the strainer with a blend of black tea scented with cranberry and orange, her wintertime favorite. When the kettle whistled, she poured the steaming water over the tea leaves, closed her eyes for a moment to breathe in the fragrant steam, then added a splash of milk, and carried the mug to her wooden windowsill seat. Outside, the world was still dark. Winter sunrises came slowly, and thick clouds still blanketed the sky. Across the street, Lily could just make out the dim golden glow of a nightlight in a neighbor's window. Most of the town was still tucked in bed. As the person who always opened the bakery, Lily was used to being up before everyone else, but she had never minded. In fact, she loved the quiet magic of being the first to greet the day, the one to hand over the first hot coffee and pastry to someone just starting their morning. She sat for a little while longer, her hands curled around the warm cup. They said it might snow today, she thought to herself. I wonder if it really will.